Hey everyone, what's up? Let's talk about Crimson Desert. So it's been about 5 days since the game released, and things have certainly been interesting. Critic reviews came out on Wednesday, and those were quite mixed. The Metacritic rating sits at a 78, with there being a fairly wide swing of strong opinions in either direction. Now on one side, you got places like Shack News that gave the game a 5 out of 10, with this quote: "Perhaps the most damning thing I can say about Crimson Desert is that it is an enormous game with a ton of content, and I spend most of my time with it wishing I was doing anything else." Okay, damn, dude. All right. Now, on the other extreme end, though, you got Vice over here giving the game a 10 out of 10, saying that Crimson Desert is the next big game in the genre. They did caveat that with saying, like, if you like Breath of the Wild or something, but still, nevertheless, a perfect score. I think that's also crazy, and I genuinely really like this game. In fact, my opinion on my own review, which came out last Wednesday, was more or less that I think there's a lot about this game that's great, that I really love, but I also think a lot of people wouldn't enjoy the game and would get hung up on some of their larger flaws. Some people will bounce off and say, I don't get it. For others, though, I think it's going to be like an all-time favorite, memorable gaming experience. It's definitely been for me. This is hands down one of my favorite games of this year, and that is pretty much exactly what seems to have happened. Obviously, there was the wide breadth of opinions on the critic reviews, but then since the game officially released on Thursday, it has been a whirlwind of strong public opinions also in either direction. The game came out pretty much immediately to a mixed user score on Steam, and it sat there for the first couple of days, with the biggest quantity of complaints centering around the game's controls, the game's narrative, and a bit of awkward or unintuitive design, which once again, all stuff I called out and pretty much expected in my review, because it's true. And having continued to play even more in the subsequent days, I still feel the same way about all of that. None of it's really changed. Although I do want to add just a couple of notes. So first off, on the controls front, like, it's certainly a massive hurdle. It is something that people had been complaining about since there were first hands-on demos with the game a little over a year ago, and it's still a big issue at release. As time goes on, you certainly adjust, and I have grown comfortable with the control setup, but that took a bit of time. Like, I'm 110 hours into this thing at this point. It was in fact the case that when I first started playing, the awkward controls were one of the first things that stood out to me, and it actually kind of, funnily enough, reminds me a lot of gaming when I was a kid. Yeah, it's definitely one big thing that's gonna hold the game down is it has a non-standard control setup. So like so much of games controls, it reminds me of being back in the 90s when there was no standardized setup for like controller layout, and every game that you played would have like a completely different, like the jump was different, the attack was different, the heavy attack, the interact, you know? Before that stuff really became standardized in gaming, it used to be that every game you played, it was like a whole new learning curve of just like how the controls worked, even if they were similar style games. Parts of how they set this game up remind me of that period of time before controls became kind of standardized and you had to learn a whole new configuration for doing similar things in similar games. No, it's back to the 90s basically. They certainly made quite a decision with how they've managed to put people off with their keybinds and stuff. In fact, I disliked the gamepad controls so bad, I swapped immediately to mouse and keyboard, even though the Steam pop-up recommendation says this game plays better on a gamepad. I said, whatever. You know what? I liked it a whole lot more. Like, I played for an hour with the gamepad, and then I restarted the game to go back through the tutorial with mouse and keyboard, and I've stuck with that ever since. I just like it a whole lot better. Yeah, it's still got its issues. It's still got its quirks and things that could be better. There are a bunch of things that you just literally can't bind, which is like inventory and opening up the skill page and I just don't get it, but whatever. Hopefully it gets fixed. In fact, there's already mods apparently out there that fix many of these issues, but regardless. Now, as for the narrative, it's remained largely forgettable. Fortunately for me, I don't really come to most games for a narrative. You'll know this if you've followed my content for any length of time, because I just keep talking about it in a lot of games. I am primarily a gameplay, exploration, and systems-focused gamer. Those are the things that I care about. If I'm being frank, I don't really care that the story sucks. It would be great if it were better, especially for the people who do enjoy it, but where the game shines, which is its sandbox elements, it more than delivers for me personally. That's the stuff that I love about games. The gameplay, the exploration, maybe the narrative that's built within the world, but not the immediate cutscenes and the dialogue with NPCs. Again, I'm belaboring this point that I've made a billion times before. You might not believe me if this is the first video of mine that you've been seeing, but dude, ask anyone who follows my channel. I talk about this all the time. I really simply don't care for most games about the narrative. So, but yeah, I mean, yes. So yes, if you're looking for like a Witcher or a Baldur's Gate or a Red Dead quality narrative, you ain't getting it with Crimson Desert. That's a fact of the matter. But if you do like the idea of a big fantasy sandbox, this thing definitely delivers there. I love the sandbox aspect, to be frank, but some quests seem kind of cringe. I mean, most of the NPC dialogue in the game, I think, is kind of awkward. I think a lot of that is sort of a likely like a lost in translation thing. Viewing this as an open world fantasy sandbox is really, I think, how it's best viewed. It is really that kind of a game at its core, or at least I would say that's its strength. Its strength is its sandbox elements. But it's kind of the cool thing that I've liked about the game is there's so much you can spend your time on. Like I said it at the beginning of the stream, I've spent the past 3 days and I've not done a single quest, but there's been a lot of stuff that I have been doing. So yeah, the first couple of days reviews were mixed online, and the online discourse kind of mainly centered around all of the game's biggest flaws, with people ranting and raving about it. But in the subsequent days, the tone has slowly started shifting. Everyone who just immediately bounced off the game and severely disliked it, they left their negative review and have seemingly moved on. And now, in the process, the game has continued to grow and appeal to the people who do like it on the thing it's delivering. To the point now where reviews are currently mostly positive, believe it or not. As of this recording right here, the game is sitting at a 78% rating, a massive upswing from what it was initially. I think the low was around 50%, like the first day and a half, it was really, really low. Now it's up to 77, 78 as of right this second. I mean, that's a crazy improvement. Also, the player count has continued climbing over the weekend, with the game peaking on Sunday evening at 248,000 concurrent players. And really what's happening here, and what I think will continue to happen, is that the game is finding its people. Crimson Desert doesn't appeal to everyone, but for the people who do like what it's delivering, it really is something special, and I will continue to stand by that. Is the game good so far? For me, I love it. It's a lot of fun. Big, expansive, open sandbox RPG with like tons of stuff going on. Lots of points of interest, but it's all, what I like about it is that all of that stuff has been really interesting, and I'm constantly coming across new systems and being introduced to new things you can do in the game. Think along the lines, I'm not talking about like the quality of the narrative or anything, but think along the lines of the scale and the complexity of systems and mechanics of something like Red Dead. I think grand picture, this game's not going to be as much beloved as Red Dead is, not at all, because I don't think it appeals to as many people. It's a little too quirky. But it's that kind of game. Huge open world, lots of systems, lots to explore, lots of different things to discover, with more kind of over-the-top, almost anime-style combat in a fantasy setting. It checks quite a few of those boxes. But I don't think it's going to be as successful as Red Dead 2, or it's definitely not going to appeal to as many people. I assume this game will remain mixed reception for quite some time, but I think over time, as it continues to find its audience that it does click with, it'll swing over to positive. I don't really ever expect it to be overwhelmingly positive, but I liken it to Dragon's Dogma 2. I think it's going to have that same sort of like spot in its history where there's some people who love it and a lot of people who either don't get it or actively dislike it. That's kind of the ballpark I'm putting this game in, for sure. Frankly, because that's just how I feel. Like, that's literally how I feel. I get why a lot of people don't like it. I'm loving it, like, sincerely. I will reiterate, though, I don't want to just glaze over this thing. Many people will still hate the game, and I understand why. So don't think this is me saying everyone who dislikes it is wrong. No, they're not wrong. They just don't like what this game is offering, really. They don't have a taste for the stew, if you will, and that's fine. Like, not everyone has to find every meal or every game appealing. Right? I'm not even rage baiting, I just don't see the appeal. Well, that's fine. No, dude, people can like different things. It's not a big deal. Like, you don't have to find enjoyment out of things other people enjoy. I really like surfing. Some people hate the idea of splashing around and getting tumbled in waves like a fucking washing machine. It's fine for people to like different things. Games or otherwise. Games, books, movies, whatever. That's totally... We don't have to agonize over other people liking things we don't like. Some people really like 4X strategy games. I don't. Some people really like hyper-competitive shooters like Counter-Strike. I don't. One thing that's definitely stood out to me here is how responsive the developers have been in taking on this feedback. Initially, when a lot of the negative reviews were coming out and people were really focusing on their dislike for the control setup, they said, hey, you'll get used to it. It's like riding a bike. And while that is true, They seem to have backpedaled a bit on that. In fact, they put out a big statement that said, thanks to everyone for their feedback. We're listening to you. And they especially highlighted, we're going to be taking a look and making adjustments to the controls. And I will mention this as well. I talked about this in my review video. During the review process, the devs were similarly very responsive. They pushed through multiple patches addressing some of the bigger pain points that the reviewers were complaining about. In fact, you not having only 20 inventory slots on release was in response to them responding to reviewers complaining about the inventory. Dude, I would go into one point of interest and my inventory would be full. It just kept happening for the first several days. Then eventually, I think it was about 5 or 6 days prior to release, they put out a patch that they just straight up gave everyone plus 50 more inventory slots right out the gate, like immediately in the game. And you know, all those little bags that you can purchase from various NPCs in towns and points of interest, those bags that add +1 inventory slot, those didn't exist either. So they like doubled or quadrupled the available inventory in this game in direct response to the reviewers saying, dude, there's way too limited inventory. Now there's still way more that they can do. For example, maybe there should be storage at the bank or maybe there should be storage at the camp. And I do think that's something that they've talked about of implementing at some point, but it's not in the game as of right now. At least it wasn't when I played yesterday. So we'll see if it is today. I'm going to be hopping back in later because I'm still obsessed with this game. I wonder how long before we hear future plans for the game. Oh, well, I'll tell you, dude, they've been patching like crazy. The day before release, one of my main complaints was they had really awkward waypoint placements. So for example, the main city had a waypoint that was outside of town when you teleported. You had to get on your mount and ride for about 30 seconds before you were actually in town. Literally on launch day, they patched and completely changed the waypoint so that it was in a nice central location. Like they have been so on top of listening to feedback. Another big thing was during the review process, inventory was really small at the beginning and like it would constantly fill up. So one day they just released a patch where they gave everybody 50 extra inventory slots, like just like that. Like they have been ultra responsive to feedback during the review process, and I'm guessing they're gonna continue and doing that post-release as well. I just can't believe how quickly they've been patching stuff. It seems like now that the game is out and publicly available, they're similarly trying to be responsive to feedback, and we'll see what they end up doing with the controls, right? Even though I've now gotten used to them, they're gonna change them and hopefully make them better. So, or at least give us more options for fine-tuning, customizing it the way that we want. At the very least, just let us make whatever keybind setup we want, whether it's on the mouse and keyboard or the gamepad. Just let us do that. It's really that simple, and that would go a long way. So yeah, over the few days since release, while everyone on the internet seemingly has just been spending all of their time arguing about whether or not this game is actually good, or if it is the worst piece of crap to have ever released, during this entire time, I've just continued playing and having a great time. It's honestly been awesome. How is the game so far? I genuinely love it. Like, I think it's awesome. I'm not tired at all after 90 hours. I can't wait to see more. That's really the strength, is that this game just keeps delivering new stuff, and it is surprising in a lot of ways. For some people, what's surprising about it will be off-putting, like how difficult puzzles are. Like, I have no clue how to solve that puzzle we just saw. Absolutely no clue. There might be a piece of paper that literally has the answer to that puzzle that I find somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, the game's got shit like that. Or the fact that the game has gambling or stock trading, or the fact that you can do caravan runs or archery contests or fist punching contests. The fact that there's a whole black market where if you steal goods, you can go there and sell them to. The fact that you can come across people riding wagons of goods in the environment, attack them, get in it, ride that to a chop shop, which will disassemble the wagon and give you money as a reward. And the list just goes on and on and on of like all like this. It's one of those, this game has it. There are trains in the game. They just have trains. I think they're in the desert. There's also hot air balloons. Yeah, dude, it's just a fucking huge fantasy sandbox game. And I love it. Like, you keep finding new things. Yeah. I don't know if you were here about an hour ago. I just learned, you know, like in Assassin's Creed, you can hop into hay barrels or stacks of hay to go stealth. You can do that in this game as well. Like, and I didn't know that. I'm 90 hours in, but there's so much all the time. I'm finding new stuff all the time. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not surprised by the mixed ratings, but I love the game, and I know a lot of other people will too. Just want to highlight a couple of things. So the exploration continues to be a lot of fun and very rewarding. I've had some really cool experiences and gotten some awesome gear rewards simply by wandering around, not from a quest line or fighting a particular boss, but just wandering and exploring the environment has resulted in some cool moments and some cool rewards. So this is another thing that this game delivers so well on. Everywhere you go, you're going to see something in the not too off distance distance that's interesting and you want to go explore. And 9 times out of 10, it's actually something pretty cool and or like worthwhile, valuable. Let's see what this thing is. We're almost there. What? This is like a bandit camp entrance? Holy shit. Where am I? What is this place? Dude, what the This is actually crazy. I just found this in the side of the mountain. You know how hard this was to get to, too? This is like some like vertical prison or something. Oh, ritual grounds. This is crazy, though. I want to see if there's any. Sometimes these POIs will have some good loot in them, so like a treasure chest or a boss. So I want to fully explore it. Did I check that room already? I think I did. But just double check, though, every one of these. Oh, here we go. What the f is this? Soul Spear? No cap. No. Dude, what the fuck? So there's weapon swapping with Zed, and when I do it with the spear as my offhand weapon, it does that launch kick. Dude, that is sick. Oh, I hope this weapon actually stays and doesn't disappear with, Did you see that? It shoots out the souls. Oh, bro, this game just keeps getting cooler the more I play. And literally, this was just a random POI that I saw in the side of the mountain that I wouldn't have seen otherwise had I not gone exploring here and just fucking around. I can't get over how amazing this spear is. I'm like so thrilled to find this. This thing is cool as hell. I am still just so tickled about this spear weapon. And I love that the weapon swap is a freaking kick like that. That's amazing. Also, combat has begun to click even more for me. I would say for a long time, like maybe even for the first 40 or 50 hours, the game kind of felt like a spam fest, with the exception being the boss fights. But when you're fighting enemies in the open world, it felt like you could just kind of mash whatever buttons you want and you would more or less two-shot many of the enemies. That has really started to change as I continue to progress out into harder areas. The enemies are just way more difficult. They no longer die in a couple of hits, and you start to get a lot more elites, which are like these star enemies on your mini-map, mixed in with the general masses, kind of the fodder enemies. And this has forced me to pay way more attention to my resources, my stamina and my spirit, as well as my positioning and the types of moves that I'm using, because certain moves will be better against certain types of enemies, and you really have to focus on this when you're fighting the elites. So I'm just enjoying combat way more now. Reminds me of easy Souls-like. Well, it is until you get to the bosses. I'm also... The levels, there's no like level scaling. As you move to the higher end zones, things get progressively way harder. Enemies will just kill you way faster. They'll be more aggressive so that you can't really dodge their attacks or anything. Like this is an elite and he's much harder than some of the other ones. But yeah, there's no kind of dynamic scaling. Things are just the difficulty they are. So either you'll be prepared and you'll have enough damage or health or defense to take stuff on, or you won't. And there'll definitely be plenty of spots where you won't. It's definitely much more action-packed. It reminds me a lot of the Batman Arkham games, or the ones that I'm more familiar with, the Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War series, where you're kind of juggling through big groups of enemies. That's what this game reminds me a lot of. The big combat anyways. And then lastly, the sandbox nature, it continues to be the shining star here. And really, I would say if I were to point to anything in this game that has been kind of the pinnacle that's keeping me drawn to it and wanting to keep playing, it's that. It's the sandbox elements of this game. That's why I keep wanting to explore, and I've continued to enjoy the game. Scores of this game all over the place. Yeah, I kind of liken it to Dragon's Dogma. Some people are going to absolutely adore it, and it's going to be one of their favorite games. I think that's how I feel. Like I've loved this. It's been so much fun, and it's such like an interesting and unique game. Other people are just not going to get it at all, or just outright hate it. I expect the reviews to be mixed. I think over time they'll start to lean positive as the game finds more of its people who enjoy this kind of game. But because it's kind of quirky and it has like a non-standard control setup, it's a little awkward at times. It takes time to get used to and comfortable playing. And I think that alone puts people off. But then also the lack of narrative focus. People think of a single player RPG and they're like, I'm gonna have this awesome narrative. And there is a narrative, but it's just kind of whatever. And it's not really the focus and the strength of the game. But if you come into this looking for like a sandbox game, a sandbox fantasy game, if that's what you're after and interested in, there's like very little like this, and it does it quite well, despite its quirks. But yeah, overall, I continue to really enjoy and appreciate what Crimson Desert does well, and I'm looking forward to exploring and seeing more. Again, just a little over 110 hours as of right now. It looks like I've explored about a third of the map. It's just crazy. There's so much more to see, and I'm roughly about halfway through the main story quest line. I'm not exactly beelining either one, the map reveals or the main story. I'm kind of oscillating between the two, and yeah, this is how I'm really enjoying the game. Now, I might make some more videos here and there if any big topics or discussion things that I want to talk about come up with the game, but I think I've basically more or less said everything that I want to say from everything that I've seen. At the very least, maybe we get one more video when I roll credits on the story and when I see at least half of the map, right? We'll see. Yeah, so I'm going to continue to progress some more. I'll be streaming some more this week. If you want to catch me on Twitch, that's where I'll be. But that's all for this video. Thanks for watching Crimson Desert. I am continuing to really enjoy it. I get why some people actively dislike it. It's what it is. Hope you all have a good day. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.